Welcome to RedGuides.com's video guide to the Spirit Kings in Mogu'shan Vaults on 10-man normal difficulty. My name is Arch and I will be guiding you through this encounter. Split into 4 phases. You have to fight the 4 Spirit Kings. Now, the order that you fight them is random each time. It just assigns a random order. Each king has 3 main abilities, which they'll do when they're alive. And then once they've been defeated, they each have 1 ability which they will continue to do throughout the fight whilst you fight the other Spirit Kings. So it starts off very easy. You've just got 1 dude doing 3 abilities, but then right towards the end you've got the 4th dude who's got his 3 abilities plus 1 of the first ones, 1 of the second and 1 of the third. So you've got a lot going on towards the end. So it gets progressively harder as the fight goes along, but overall it's pretty easy. It's not really that hard. This is Jiang, the Merciless. His main abilities are he attacks very slowly, but every time he does attack, it does 800,000 damage. But it's split amongst everybody in front of him, so you all have to group up when he's attacking because it has to be split, otherwise it just won't happen. His second ability is called Flanking Orders, which you can see running across the screen now. They will come from a random side of the screen, and they'll just chomp their way across. If you get caught in it, it pretty much will kill you because it hits for 500,000. So unless you've got some cooldowns up to survive it, you won't. And his third ability, as you see there, is called Annihilate. That would just basically one-shot you, I think. If you get caught in that, you're dead. If you get caught in that, you're terrible because it's so slow and you can just move straight through him. But they're his 3 main abilities: Flanking Orders, Annihilate, and his main damage in attack, which just does so much damage you have to group up. Flanking Orders is the attack that he continues through for the rest of the fight. So periodically throughout the fight you're going to have to keep an eye out for these dudes and make sure you don't get caught in them. And the second guy for us was Meng the Demented, and this one's a bit of a strange one. He has sort of 2 sides to him. One, the crazed side, where he increases his damage by a percentage of the insanity he has, which is represented by the energy bar. And the other side is called the cowardice sort of phase, where he reflects damage back as a percentage of his energy bar. Now, he gets energy every half a second. I think about 1 energy every half a second or something like that. But he also periodically casts this thing called Crazy Thought, which gives him a boost of energy. It is interruptible. What we did was we let every single Crazy Thought in the crazed phase go through so that he hit 100 energy as quick as possible and started the cowardice phase. And then during the cowardice phase, we interrupted every single one we could in order to prolong that phase as long as we could. Because as you can see, the damage is minimal that it reflects. I think it's only like roughly 10% or whatever. I think it builds up obviously as he gets more and more crazy. But it's basically just a good chance for you to stand and nuke and give the healers a chance to regen some mana. So you want to try and prolong this phase as long as possible by interrupting all of the crazed thoughts in this bit, but not any in the crazed phase. He also does Maddening Shout, which you just saw there, which turns you against each other. You end up hating each other, and you've got to break it by you get out of it once you've received 40,000 damage from anybody else. So you just group up an AoE it out of it, and it breaks pretty instantly. Be careful with doing things like dots. As you can see on our grid, our DK put Frost Touch, or whatever it's called, Icy Touch, on every single one of us. That's not going to help the healers out. So try and avoid any attacks like that. Try and use things like Rain of Fire and explosions, and nothing that leaves a lasting dot, because it will stay on everybody, which won't help. Maddening Shout is the attack that he will continue to do throughout the rest of the encounter. So that's what you need to group up for the rest of the fight once he disappears. And as you can see, Flanking Orders is still going on periodically throughout the fight. Now, the third guy for us was Subutai the Swift. Now, this guy has 3 abilities as usual. Volley, you just saw there. He fires 3 volleys of arrows start off in a wide cone, getting narrower and narrower. The first shot will do 100,000 damage, the second shot will do 200,000 damage, and the third shot will do 400,000 damage. But it gets smaller and smaller, so you might get hit by the first one. That's not too much of a worry because it's not a massive amount of damage, but it is quite a big area. But if you get hit from any after that, it's really your own fault, and you definitely shouldn't get hit by any of those because it's very easy to move out of. Second ability he does is Rain of Arrows, which you saw a second ago, where it will target a random member and send a rain of arrows down on top of them, and when you're caught in them, you will get hit with a thing called pinning arrow, which will pin you in place and deal damage until you're freed, basically. So you want to make sure you're spread out here, because multiple people, we all grouped up in our first attempt and everybody got pinned, and that was pretty much the end of the fight because everybody was pinned. So make sure you're spread out for that bit. And his third ability does called Pillage, as you're just seeing now. He jumps to a random person, spins around like a madman, and if you get caught in it, he'll steal all your items and you'll do 50% less damage, you'll do 50% less healing, and you'll receive 50% more damage. So you don't want to get caught in that. And there's the pinning arrow that I was speaking of there. Pillage is the attack he will continue to do once he's been defeated. So you want to make sure to move away from him when Pillage is coming up. As you see, Maddening Shout's just about to come up, so everybody wants to group up ready in preparation for that, so we can AoE it down nice and quickly. But unfortunately, you do get the odd time where you have this, where you get Maddening Shout and you want to all group up to try and help AoE it down, and then you get a Pillage as well on top, which hits everybody. So sometimes these mechanics overlap each other, which makes this fight a little bit tough. But generally, individually, each mechanic isn't very hard. And once you know how to counteract every single mechanic, it's a very easy fight. But when you do get two overlapping like that, it does make it rather tricky. And you can see I just got pinned there, but nobody was nearby, so I was the only one that got pinned, so that's how it should be. And last but not least, we got Xian of the Endless Shadow. Now, 3 attacks he does. He does Charge Shadows, which hits one person and anybody nearby, so you have to be spread out. And another attack he does, not Undying Shadows, a different one. But it's another one where you have to spread out, because a lot of his main attacks sort of chain together people nearby you, so you have to really be spread out. He does this Undying Shadows, which summons a little skull on a random member, and that skull will follow them, and it does a lot of damage to anybody nearby. And when it's killed, it will leave a big pool, a lot like Defile from Lich King, if you remember that, on the floor, which will do a lot of damage. But what will happen with that is over 30 seconds, it will gradually get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and at the end of that, it will come back to life. So I'd imagine, we were quite lucky, we had him 4th. Shadow Blast, you can see there, you want to interrupt as much as you possibly can. It's just a big hitting single cast attack, which if you can interrupt it, then nice. As I say, in the Undying Shadows, we got lucky because we had him 4th. But I'd imagine if you got him first towards the end of the fight, as far as I can tell, you're going to have a lot of these skulls flying around, because it said after being dead for 30 seconds they come back to life. Now, I didn't say anything about how many times it will do that, or if there's anything that can happen to remove them from the game completely, but only time will tell, I guess, as to whether they do or not. As you see, look, it's just revived back up there, so you want to, again, kite it to the edge of the room so the circles don't make a problem for anybody. I've got Maddening Shout coming up now, along with a Pillage. Again, very difficult, very annoying. This fight's got a 10-minute enrage, so 2.5 minutes on each boss ideally. It's not particularly tight. As you can see, we're about to kill him. I think we had like 30-40 seconds left in the fight. We weren't really maximising DPS. We were just sort of still learning the fight, to be honest with you. It's not a very hard fight. So all in all, very straightforward. Once you get the grips of every mechanic, you'll be fine. So have fun and good luck, and stay tuned for more bosses.